Number 15, Project Hail Mary. Yes, this is one of the few books that's been released within the last 5 to 10 years that I've actually liked. The aliens seemed alien. The communication between them was not direct. It was very realistic in the sense that it was this huge struggle to get anything across to each other. It took this leap of faith from both sides to assume that they're friendly, and they end up being each other's only hope. And I thought it was done beautifully. It's not a perfect book. It is pretty Hollywood. I haven't read The Martian, but I've seen the movie. I can tell that it's more inventive, it's more creative. You're about to regain respect for me. Number 14 is Blindsight by Peter Watts. It reminded me a lot of Ender's Game into the Enderverse with the voice of the book. It's really intense. It's got a lot of horror vibes. If you like Solaris but wish it was a bit more horror, I'd say go for this. It's more psychological horror than anything though. Yeah, check out Blindsight by Peter Watts. See others. So number 13 is The Lost World by Michael Crichton. I do have a review of this book on the channel. I would recommend checking it out if you loved Jurassic Park or the Jurassic Park series, but you always wish there was something more. If you've read the Jurassic Park book but not read the Lost World book, you should be happy to know that there's a lot happening there that's new. There's a sense of discovery, a little bit of surprise there. Number 12 is a much lesser known novel by a much lesser known writer, Run to the Stars by Mike Scott Rohan. I also have a review of this book on my channel. I believe he is one of the most underrated authors ever. This book means quite a lot to me, and maybe objectively it's not quite at the level that I place it. His other books are much better. This is kind of lower rung for writing that he's done, but still it's above and beyond the previous few books I've listed here and many, many others. Next is Philip K. Dick's The Man in the High Castle. This was fantastic. It was my first Philip K. Dick book. I've always wanted to read some of his stuff. I loved A Scanner Darkly, the movie with Keanu Reeves and the rotoscope animation, and of course Blade Runner, but this was my first foray into his fiction. It really pulls you in. It does have this sense of reality. All the themes on historicity, this alternate universe. The premise of the book is that there's this alternate timeline where the Axis wins instead of the Allies, and you get to see what happens to the United States. Hence, I don't want to give too much of it away, but it's definitely worth checking out. It's a good place to start with Philip K. Dick. Number 10, down to the top 10, we have Blood Music by Greg Bear. This also has some very strong horror themes, body horror and psychological horror. This book is kind of lopsided. The first half is 10 out of 10, top tier, some of the best stuff I've ever read, just riveting stuff. The second half kind of goes nuts, like it goes off into this place where it's difficult to follow. You can tell he just had a little too much fun, but the premise is plenty to land it in my top 10. This was written in the 80s. Most of the book takes place in what they call the Silicon Valley of biology. There's a character who is able to bestow a virus with human-like intelligence. So you have these single-celled organisms that have the intelligence of a human being, and they of course replicate much faster than humans. So they start to compound in their advancement. But he does this project secretly at his lab, and so his boss orders him to terminate the project. This could get them in some serious trouble. But instead of terminating it, the main character injects these creatures into his bloodstream. And so the rest of the book, you see the repercussions of that. His body starts undergoing these changes. Like I said, there's some body horror aspects, but it's not a horror novel. It ends up becoming more of like this sort of transcendent kind of Arthur C. Clarke kind of thing, where the entire world, all of civilization undergoes this big metamorphosis and becomes this totally new state of being. It's really good, but yeah, like I said, the first half, which was based off of a short story, was fantastic. Just some of the most intense stuff I've ever seen. Number 9, this one is by an author that everyone knows. I just referenced him, Arthur C. Clarke, but he also worked with a co-author named Stephen Baxter, and the book is called The Light of Other Days. Now, this also has a really cool premise. There is this entrepreneur CEO guy who works with his estranged son, who is an inventor. And the inventor comes up with a way to generate wormholes. What that means is that privacy is a thing of the past because they're able to connect any 2 points of space-time. So if you were to put one in China and one here, you'd be able to look there and see it, and they'd be able to look here. This goes from being a consumer product to being something that literally anyone can have with no restrictions. They find a way to implement this to not only look through space, but also time by just programming the wormhole to literally look at the light of other days. So the Earth moves through space and the solar system moves through space over time. It's never in the exact same location as it was last year or even yesterday. So they programmed the wormhole to wind up at some distant point where the Earth was. So you're catching Earthlight. And it's a fantastic story. I think it's better than anything else I've read by Arthur C. Clarke. It's almost a little bit like Childhood's End, but better. It's like an upgraded Childhood's End. So if you like Childhood's End, read this. You'll love it. Number 8, Solaris by Stanislaw Lem. It's about a planet called Solaris that has a planet-wide ocean that is actually a single-celled organism, and it has taken generations for scientists to attempt to communicate with this ocean. And you're following a character who has studied to go to this place. He finally gets there. He gets to the Solaris station, a space station that's almost abandoned, and it feels like almost like dead space or alien when he gets there. There's something horrible going on, and you're not sure what it is. People who were once dead start to roam the halls of the Solaris station. People who were never on the Solaris station in the first place. You soon piece together that this ocean is doing strange things. It's got some telepathic aspect to it. If you find that interesting, go and check out my review of Solaris. It was the first review I put on the channel. Number 7, Neuromancer by William Gibson, which I have loved since the moment I read it. But over time, it just grows on me like a fine wine. His prose is so good. Certain things will seem superfluous, but they're not. They're all necessary to build this very distinct, messy world. And yes, it is responsible for creating cyberpunk, and it is responsible for creating Matrix and the video game Cyberpunk 2077. None of those would exist without this. But it's more than that. There is such this distinct feeling you get from reading William Gibson's prose. It becomes addictive after a while. And as a writer, it makes me into a better writer. After reading that, I went and started editing another draft, and I'm starting to see things I hadn't seen before. It was like Dragon Ball Z, where you get to a certain power level and you can start to see these other super powerful characters fight when before they just looked like wisps of movement before vanishing over and over again. Number 6 is A Fire Upon the Deep by Vernor Vinge. I also have a review of this on some similar rocks. This was released in the early 90s, I believe it was 92, and it is such a good space opera. It's my favorite space opera, and it needs to be read more by more people. And I have been dying to read Deepness in the Sky, the prequel, but I've kind of stalled because I don't want to go through all of Vernor Vinge's work because he's passed away at this point, unfortunately, very recently. In fact, he passed away as I was doing my read-through of A Fire Upon the Deep, and I only knew this after I'd finished. I feel blessed to have been introduced to his stuff while he was still around. Please go and check out that review, and if that interests you, read that book. Bypass the review, read the book. It's just an awesome book. There is a concept that he introduces called the zones of thought. Imagine the Milky Way. Picture the Milky Way. Now, depending on how close you are to the galactic center, influences what life is capable of. So if you're in the core, you don't have sentient life. As you go a little further out, you get things like the Earth, you get things like humans. You go further than that, you get godlike entities who are capable of faster than light travel. So yeah, the further you go out, the more capable they are of things. It's amazing. Number 5, Ender's Shadow, not Ender's Game. Ender's Game is fantastic. It's fantastic, but Ender's Shadow exceeds it in every way. Bean, he was delegated as Ender's sidekick in the original Ender's Game. In this, he's the protagonist, and he is a much better protagonist than Ender ever was. He is so... I've never felt more empathetic about a character. You start off with Bean homeless at 5 years old in the streets of Rotterdam, and those streets are filled with countless other homeless children, and he is a super genius. He has a superhuman intellect And so he's putting together all these tactics to manipulate all these other kids so that he doesn't get murdered, and yet he's still able to feed himself, and he's navigating these social dominance hierarchies. And it's heartbreaking, it's heart-wrenching, but also you recognize his triumphs in these heart-wrenching, awful situations. He's such a good character. If you've read Ender's Game and you liked it, go and read Ender's Shadow. It gives you the same satisfaction and then some. So good. Now, number 4, City of Illusions by Ursula K. Le Guin. I have a review of those 3 as well. My phone is getting rained on so hard. The rest of the review will have to take place at my house. Number 4, City of Illusions by Ursula K. Le Guin. Ursula K. Le Guin is fantastic. She has the only prose I've encountered that has rivaled Jean Wolfe. It scratches that same itch. It's got this density to it. It's got this poetry to it that doesn't detract from the overall speed, the overall rhythm. I just finished The Left Hand of Darkness, and that was a wonderful, wonderful novel. This one beat it out just barely. City of Illusions is about a future Earth. We've been invaded by a species called the Shing that are very mysterious. You don't see them anywhere, but they've ruled in a very awful way where human beings are allowed to live, but they're not allowed to progress past a certain state. So they are all living in these like tribe-like situations. If they congregate to too high of a number, or if they start developing technology to a certain point, they become exterminated. And the main character wakes up with no memory of who he is and is accepted into one of these tribes. He has cat-like eyes, and they think he might be a Shing. So he goes on a journey through this future Earth to find out who he is, to learn his true name, to learn his true history, to learn his true self. And he has to go to Estok, the capital city of the Shing, in order to do this. And it is gorgeous, especially the last 10 to 15% of the novel. It goes to this psychedelic, pure soul of writing. It's just beautiful, beautiful work. Please, if you do start this, start from the first book though. The first 3 books of the Hainish cycle are very important to get through in sequence. After that, you can attack any of the books in whatever order that you'd like. You can go next to The Left Hand of Darkness, or you can go to The Dispossessed. It doesn't matter. Number 3, Hothouse by Brian Aldiss. So I love this book. This book is such an adventure, even without all of the philosophy, without all of the deep themes intertwined in this story, which it has them. It's just an excellent, excellent adventure and has some of the coolest world building ever. So it takes place in another future Earth, but a far, far future Earth, where all of fauna has essentially been dead for countless millennia and has been replaced. All of their evolutionary niches have been replaced by flora. You have plants that have become heavily carnivorous and have adapted to the point where they're essentially animals. Everything is green. There's such this synesthetic sort of green feeling to everything. I've never read a book that had me steeped in color like that. It's so beautiful, but also it's got these violent action scenes, so many deaths. So humans have somehow persisted up until this point, but they're no longer at the top of the food chain. We have degraded. We don't really have civilization anymore. We're tribes, just like with City of Illusions, but much less so. We're almost like chimp-sized creatures that have returned to the trees, and I should say returned to the tree, singular, because a giant banyan tree has taken over the, once again, singular continent. It's like a Pangea sort of situation where the giant tree has grown to cover just about the entire continent, and the humans live in this tree, avoiding all of these horrible plant creatures that just want to eat them. We are on the bottom of the food chain, and it is so awesome. It's so awesome. It's also funny. It's also really funny. Number 2, Starmaker by Olaf Stapledon. Starmaker is a non-traditional science fiction book. It's a non-traditional book in general. It barely has a plot. In fact, the plot is the character becoming the setting. What I mean by that is that it is written in first person. You have a guy who's standing outside of his property looking up at the stars. Then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, his consciousness is taken out of his mind, beamed out, and circulating the world until he gets to know every living life form and all the geography of the Earth, all the things he's never seen before. And then it expands even farther until he's in space, going from planet to planet. And eventually he finds a planet that is Earth-like, and he confronts this human-adjacent species, and you learn all about their history as he telepathically communicates with one of them. And you learn about how they're similar to humans, you learn about how they're different to humans, and then you go to another planet, to another planet, to another planet, until you get to know the galaxy. It's like a history book of the galaxy. And all the while, it's the process of our main character expanding his consciousness and joining together with all of these intelligent species that are human adjacent until they go to ones that are not human adjacent. You find intelligent species that are nothing like us, and it just gets weirder and weirder until the very stars themselves have consciousness, and that consciousness blends together and blurs until it becomes one, and they eventually confront the Starmaker, which is essentially God. And I could tell you anything from this book and it wouldn't spoil it because it's just so non-traditional. This was written in the early 1900s by Olaf Stapledon, who was a pacifist and a professor of philosophy. Olaf Stapledon is such an incredible writer. I feel that it's a sin that I haven't read more of his work at this point, but I plan on it this year to read Sirius and to read First and Last Men. But each and every sentence has so much value. You'll find that there are future science fiction works that have borrowed and written entire novels based off of maybe a paragraph of his, or entire series of novels based on a paragraph of his. It's pretty incredible. He is surprisingly influential. If you're a science fiction writer especially, I would recommend reading this book. I think that it is a mandatory read for a science fiction writer. If you're a science fiction reader, you're gonna love this. If you just give it the time it needs, give it the necessary effort, and you'll love it. Now, number one, similarly has gorgeous, dense prose. It says a lot, that is multi-layered, but it has an excellent plot. It has an excellent character, and it has an excellent setting. And of course, I am talking about The Book of the New Sun by Wolfe. There is nothing I've encountered like this series. Now, if I have to choose one book of The Book of the New Sun, it would have to be The Sword of the Lictor. But, I mean, hey, I got this here, which is all the Book of the New Sun. But when I talk about Book of the New Sun, I really think that Earth of the New Sun should be incorporated into it. It's all one thing. So the basic premise is that you have a character named Severian. He is of the Torturers Guild. He's been brought up in the Torturers Guild. He knows nothing about his background. He doesn't know who his parents were or any of his extended family whatsoever. All he knows is the Torturers Guild. As you're taught about this, you find that there are ethical and unethical ways of torturing somebody, which in itself is kind of insane, right? As he rises to become a journeyman torturer, he's just about to kind of graduate. A character named Thekla is brought into the Madichin Tower. The Madichin Tower is where he's lived. He knows pretty much nothing about the world outside of it. And Thekla is someone who he develops a romantic relationship with. And he learns from her about the outside world. She gives him a couple of books. Well, she recommends him a couple of books that he reads that teach him through folklore about the outside world. His understanding of the world is very indirect, just like your understanding is indirect, because this is all in first person. Now, I'm not going to tell you anything else that happens there, because I think every bit of this series is precious. You need to be surprised throughout it. Here's what makes it interesting. This takes place in the far future, similar to Hothouse. Hundreds of thousands of years, if not millions of years in the future. Things have returned to a almost Middle Ages, pseudo-feudal kind of system. The past is myth. Modern day, what we have now is myth, but it's done in a way that is so tasteful, it is so careful, and so perfect. And this book was apparently, it's referenced by Wolfe in the beginning in a joking sort of manner. He doesn't take it too seriously himself, but the whole premise is that this book was sent back in time, and Gene Wolfe is the one who found it and translated it. And Severian is such a cool character. I will do an entire series of videos on the Book of the New Sun because it's so good and it's so dense. If there's a particular scene or chapter where you're like, what the hell just happened? Sometimes you're meant to feel that way, similar to Neuromancer, but sometimes the truth is right in front of you. This book can feel like it is rewriting itself as you are reading it. So those are my top 15 science fiction books. I will do a top 10, maybe top 5 fantasy books, and then eventually I'll cram them all together into one top 15 every book. But yeah, thanks for sticking around. Like and subscribe. Check out my album in the description if you like progressive rock. Otherwise, see you guys next week.